looking at my computer. And these buttons will toggle you back and forth between two screens on your computer, 2 or 3 or 4, as many as you like to have up. But if you note, you are not on 2 screens at one time. You're going back and forth. The thing about the human brain is this. Human brain cannot actually truly focus on more than one thing at a time. Human brain is incredibly brilliant at doing one thing at a time. I mean, think back to a time when you were really focused on something. Often it's when you're under the gun on a deadline, and and you put everything aside and you're just very focused on this one thing. You can put out really great work. Many of my clients say this to me. When I was on this one particular subject, this one particular project, and it was the last minute, I did such great work, and they come to this conclusion, I did great work under pressure. Well, what happens under pressure is you put everything aside and you focus on one thing, and your brain becomes truly brilliant. But you really break down the effectiveness of your ability to focus when you try to focus on more than one thing at a time. It's like toggling back and forth on the computer. And the rest of the research says that it takes something like 5 to 7 seconds for your brain to focus, to change focus from one thing to another. So imagine you're reading your email and you're working on a brief, right? So you've got the brief in front of you, but you look up every time your email dings and you focus on that, right? So you're going back and forth. What happens is you're not reading email and doing a brief at the same time. You're splitting your focus. And every time you look at the email, your focus goes there and goes away from the brief. But there's a part of your brain that's remembering that you're working on a brief. And vice versa. You go back to the brief. Oh, you still have on your mind this thing this person just said in the email. Makes you far less effective. And back to the time part of time management, it will have you be far less efficient. When you're not efficient as you can possibly be, then guess what? You're wasting time. Because if you've got to go back and correct things, if you've messed things up, because you've not been 100% focused, that's a waste of time. So multitasking truly is less time efficient. Doing one thing at a time will actually get you done more quickly. So, for many people I have to say, for many people I have to say, just trust me on that, but, go try it. Go try it and see what you think. Try doing one thing throughout the day and see how where you get to during the day. So Sharon's wanting to remind you guys to mute yourself if you're not muted, because we're getting a little bit of background noise. So let's see. So my question for you right now, this will be your first interactive part. Well, not interactive because we're really not going to talk, but I'm just going to ask you to reflect right now. What are you doing right now at this moment? So just go in your head, or you have the notes. So next to the guy that says, one thing, presence, write down, truly, I mean, coaching is about self-observation, and you really can't move forward if you don't observe where you are. So I'm going to ask you to stop for 1 second right now, observe where you are. Nobody's going to see what you're writing down, so just write down. What are all the things that you're doing other than focusing on this webinar? Okay? Do you have your email up? Are you thinking about something else? Are you watching something out the window? Are you, gesturing to someone in the room? Just notice everything you're doing, because it becomes such a habit that often we just don't see that we're multitasking much of the time. And I'm going to challenge you right now to really take this opportunity on this phone call to focus on this. And notice what happens. Notice what happens when you decide to focus on one thing for an hour and a half. And just notice. Don't judge yourself or give yourself a hard time. Just notice what happens. So we're going to go to the page. You'll see the slide that's up right now. And here's where we want to start. I'm talking about self-observation. Talking about you need to know where you are in order to move forward. No, back up. So what I want you to do with the prior slide, yeah, that one, is I want you to just take a second and think back over, let's see, today's Thursday. Think back over the last week or two. If you've been on vacation, go back farther than that. And I want you to write down right now, next to the slide, or on this slide, kind of small, the 5 things that took up most of your time over this last week or two. Now, a couple special instructions on that. Don't write sleep, and don't write work. If it's work, write down the specific activity. So just think about specific time chunks, and write down the top 5 time chunks here. And I'm going to stop talking for a minute, and then we'll come back to it. All right. So finish up. Do the best you can. And then I have a question for you. From a very neutral standpoint, and having not learned anything yet about tools, what can you see when you look at this list? What do you see that's really working for you? So you might see, you know, I made time to exercise. Exercise is on this list, or spending time with my children is on this list. So I'm just going to ask you to unmute yourself if you would like to give us an answer. What do you see that's really working on here for you in the way that you've spent your time in the last week or so? See, at this point, if we were live, I would just point at you. But I can't, so somebody's going to have to step up, and we're going to be doing a live sharing here, so you may as well go for it now. Or, what's not working? What do you see in there that's not working, or what do you not see in there? Are you guys having a hard time unmuting yourself?
This is Carson. Can you hear me?
Hi, Carson.
Hi. So what's not working for me probably would be email, I guess.
Yeah. So what's not working about email?
I am getting really distracted by it. In fact, I noticed it was just up when you were saying, what are you doing right now?
Right?
And texting actually, too, because somebody was texting me at the same time you were asking that.
Isn't it great when you stop and take a snapshot of yourself and you go, oh, look at all the things I'm doing right now. Good. Email and texting. Thank you. So what about anybody have something that's working for them? Something you see in your time that you like? All right. Well, we can move on. I'll just give you the examples for myself. There will be other opportunities for you to talk while we go through here. So in the email and texting are very common things, that are not working. And they often don't come up in this exercise because it's hard to see that that's where you're spending most of your time. Well, actually, maybe it's not. Some people can see, I've got my email up all day long, and I'm on it a lot, right? Because many of us approach it that way, and I will talk a lot about email in a few minutes. And then working, so examples for me, working over the last week that I found time to sit down and focus on this webinar, make sure that I was clear and grounded and could get on here technologically, so it still was a little choppy, that I had the time, made the time to be with my children, that I had an emergency come up yesterday with my son and actually made the time to deal with that and get him to the doctor and still get everything else done, right, which tells me I've got enough space in my calendar that I can deal with emergencies. So those are mine. I'm sure that you're thinking about yours as we go